Welcome into another edition of the Varsity 4 podcast. Justin, Barney, Sponge, Franklin coming to you out of the office once again. Schedules did not align up this week, but hey, we're hoping to be back together in the office next week. But first, we got to talk about state semifinal matchup. Sponge, we have got a few teams left in the mix, just three teams. Rains as expected, St. Augustine as expected, and another team in the state semifinals, Trinity Christian. They survived the University Christian match for the third straight meeting in a row, and we've got three state semifinal games to talk about. Sponge, how many do you think we're going to have left after this week?
To be completely 100% honest, one, and that's probably going to be the Rains Vikings. Although I was looking at Sarasota Booker's schedule. Again, it's kind of like, who are these teams, in that Tampa region? Who are the teams out there? Who are they playing? And they've lost a couple games, but they've put big numbers up the last couple of weeks. But again, Tampa Jefferson was the alleged number one seed out there. They looked like they were one of the teams that was going to be the team to beat. And they got completely annihilated by somebody else in that region, in that bracket. And then next thing you know, Booker's blowing everybody out in the playoffs. I mean, they've been annihilating people. So honestly, I don't know how good they really are, not seeing them, but just knowing what Rains has been doing, I got to think Rains is on a collision course of Miami Northwestern right now.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Trinity and St. Aug are just running into two juggernauts, in my opinion, right now.
FHA released something, I believe, yesterday, Monday of this week, that Miami Northwestern is not going to be docked for an ineligible player. That had kind of taken a little bit of the waves of conversation that Teddy Bridgewater's team was facing. Potential of an ineligible player ruling, which we know earlier this season knocked Miami Central out of the playoffs. So Miami Northwestern, the number 2 seed in Rains region, will be eligible for a state championship. And all season long, we have thought that Rains and Miami Northwestern were on a collision course. That is still the case. You got to get past Sarasota Booker first, obviously, but I do think
totally.
I do think Rains is going to be the heavy favorite. I'm going to pick them by at least 3 touchdowns in that game. My memory of Sarasota Booker, I roll it back to 2005. They were in the state championship game against St. Augustine, and a little disappointing. I think St. Augustine was expected to see like a Bell Glade Central in that state championship game, and wound up Booker ended up pulling the upset. St. Augustine absolutely obliterated Booker in that championship game. I believe it was 34-15. So that's my lasting memory of Sarasota Booker. I think Rains rolls over Booker this week and gets that Miami Northwestern matchup that we've been expecting most of the year. And again, 4th playoff game at the Graveyard for Rains, and St. Augustine and Trinity Christian are on the road. So huge advantage to be able to play in your own place. You don't have to go on the road 3.5 hours, 5 hours away, whatever it may be. If you're Rains, TJ Cole has been playing lights out, closing in on that DeAndre Johnson 47 touchdown pass record. He's 8 away. I don't know if he'll get it in one game, but there's a chance he could get that if Rains wins this week, and then obviously next week. So talk about this Rains game first. Do you like where the Vikings match up with against Booker in this game, and do you think it's Miami Northwestern and Rains a week from now?
Yeah, pretty much. I like going into last week, we both said it. We felt like I felt like they can name their score against Bishop Kenny. They controlled the game, up and down the field, and no problem. I feel like just the way that TJ Cole's playing offensively, being able to distribute to all those weapons he's got, they're able to run the ball as well too. And then, you can always count back to that defensive, front. The linebackers, like they're good on all levels of football right now. They're playing great complementary ball. It goes to show like how they've progressed each week too. Like they just put up big numbers week in and week out. Like I say, my biggest gripe or question mark had always been the schedule, the competition level of who they're playing, and then obviously the playoffs have been a breeze, and even in your state semifinal game, to where you just kind of breeze through this thing. You get all the way to that game, next week, and now all of a sudden it's win or go home in that one essentially. But you haven't had to run into that adversity yet, and that's what I want to see what will happen is if they have any adverse things in this game.
Yeah, and absolutely tearing through the playoffs, you really don't have that quote unquote adversity from an opponent, but
Right.
um, whatever, you can, if you're a coach, you can kind of create the narrative that you have the adversity of expectations or whatever the case may be. I don't know what Donovan Maslin's using, but I think instead of adversity, it's just, hey, leave your legacy, leave your mark. And I think
Mm-hmm.
Reigns, all those kids know that, and that's something that they've heard time again. Back-to-back state champ a few years ago. Last time they were undefeated this late in the season was '97, a state championship season. So when you hear that all the time, you got to kind of keep those expectations in check. And I do think Reigns wins this week pretty handily against Booker. And I do think that Miami Northwestern game, should Miami Northwestern win, they don't have an easy
Right.
clash by any stretch. So I do think whoever wins that game, Northwestern, it's going to be
Yeah, who they got? Northwestern.
Reigns and the Bulls next week, and that would be it's crazy. That would be a 7:30 kick a week from Saturday. So not the best for the local media covering the game. We have a Jaguars game the
Right.
following day, but nonetheless, 7:30 next Saturday night at Pitbull Stadium in Miami would be the Reigns Vikings closing it down. Should they make it there? Maybe against Miami Northwestern state championship. The last official game of the FHA playoff season, Reigns would be closing it down. So it'd be cool if the Vikings made it down there. St. Augustine's the other survivor in Class 4A. They had a tough time
Yeah.
against Fort Walton Beach Shocktahatchee. I was at that game to the very end, 13-6. They won that game, and man, the defense played phenomenal. Defense kept St. Augustine in that game. They had 13 quick points in the first quarter, and they did not score again the rest of the
Yeah.
game. You got to credit the St. Augustine defense. To me, was the story of that game. They had two short rushing touchdowns by Christian Coleman and then Trendell Anderson. But man, that defense won St. Augustine the game. I think just in the second half alone, the fourth quarter alone, Choctaw had the ball inside the 20-yard line, and St. Augustine gave them nothing. So heck of a performance by that defense.
Yeah. What did you feel like Choctaw's defense was like legit and they struggled offensively, or what was it? What I was definitely surprised that they only scored two touchdowns in that game. And, it was more so of like this is just that type of game, and you just it's a kind of a defensive game versus you can't get anything going offensively, or
Yeah,
because
man,
Choctaw,
Choctaw is good on defense. And I talked to
yeah,
somebody at the game when I was there, and somebody on the sideline said, "Oh, these Choctaw boys are going to find out what the speed of St. Augustine is like." I
right,
said, "Man, it's not going to be like that. This Choctaw team is big, physical." They played the 2 years prior, and I saw the game
right,
last year, and St. Augustine had a tough time with them last year. And I thought
yeah,
St. Augustine had a better offense last year with
right,
Sam Lyons in there, and you had really four receivers last year that you could go to: Miles Simmons and Carl Jenkins, a healthy Carl Jenkins, and Samorian Wingo and Trenton Jones. But this year, Carl Jenkins is banged up. He was really just a
yeah,
decoy in that game. I don't even think he had a catch. Different running backs, and really, to me, the story of the season for St. Augustine was their defense. You had to have something come out of those guys. You graduated a lot, and man, to their credit, got a lot of experience in that secondary, breaking in new linebackers. But man, they played lights out, and they won them a regional championship. The offense could do nothing. The offense was more of a liability in that game. The special teams were abysmal in that game. Had two block punts, missed a PAT, missed a field goal. You got to clean that up because they could not do
yeah,
anything in that game. And man, I thought that was a banger of a game. And St. Augustine was fortunate to get out of there with a win.
yeah. No, and that's what I was wondering. What was it more so just miss execution, or was Choctaw, defense really that good? But again, when you don't execute, like you say in special teams, that's the third part of the game where if you don't get punts blocked, you don't miss field goals. Those are where drives can get short fields, so the other team can eat up clock. And then you kind of get in one of these muddy games where it's like, a score or two and like, you get a bad break and all of a sudden you're on the losing end. So when you play in a game like that, that's kind of like that adversity game, that I'm talking about with Reigns. So St. Aug's had a couple of those games this year. But the part of the problem is if they don't get some things fixed on that offense, American Heritage Plantation, they're always good. and they've been really good all year. Their two losses are to teams that are like, powerhouses. They lost to, obviously, Chaminade, who we'll talk about here in a second, who's playing Trinity. It was a field goal game, a shootout game, and then they lost to Milton out of Georgia, who's always really, really good. So, and then they've even beaten like the St. Thomases of the world this year. So, American Advantage Plantation got a really good quarterback. I think the kid's committed to Texas. It's going to be major problems and issues for them to deal with Friday night.
Yeah, and to me, this is not the American Heritage has played several of our local teams in the past. They play. I remember
Right.
Sony Michelle and uh,
Yep.
and Torrance
Bowles. Yeah.
Gibson. I mean, there have
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
they played Clay in the state championship game one year
Yeah.
and murdered Clay like
Whew.
66-8.
Yeah. That was
They
bad.
played up here. They played Bowles up here. Bowles went down there when Corky was still coaching. They played Ponte Vedra in the state championship game back in the day when Nick Trinity was playing there. He won Mr. Football. I remember talking to Patrick
Yep.
Sertan after the game, and he says, "Damn, somebody give that boy a
Yeah.
scholarship. Florida needs to
Yeah.
sign him. Miami needs to sign him." Trinity was the real deal. He won Mr. Football, but um, Plantation American Heritage beat Ponte Vedra in that state championship game by a really thin margin. I don't think they're unbeatable. I think St. Augustine will come to play. Remember, even a couple years ago, Bowles went down there and lost like a 17-10 game
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
state semifinals. I don't think they're infallible. I think they are a beatable team. But
Yeah.
man, St. Augustine is going to have to play lights out on their turf to have any shot of winning that game. I think this could be where the road ends for St. Augustine this week. I don't know who you picking in that one.
Yeah. I want to pick St. Aug, but like we've said it all year. They're in certain spots they just haven't looked clean, or they haven't looked, like we just thought they'd look almost like invincible offensively with the weapons they've got. Obviously, you got some injuries, so that doesn't help when you're one of your best players isn't healthy. Defensively, they've kind of started leaning on those guys on that side, which is good. So that defense is going to have to bring that defensive effort, on the road this Friday. But um, it, last week's game doesn't give me good positivity right now, because it's not that I felt like she just blasted Choctaw and just blew them off the face of the earth. But when you get to this point in the season, this is where you want to be at your best. And obviously, you didn't play your best, and you still found a way to win, which is good. But I just think it's a tough task. Like I say, the Plantation is not like this juggernaut of the team this year where they're just like, yeah, they've been beating everybody by 40 and they got no problem. Like you can go down there and bang with them, but you cannot have those mishaps. You can't have those mistakes. You got to clean up all that stuff, special teams wise, and you got to be able to score. You can't. You're not going to go down there and win 13-6 or 13-0
Yeah,
or whatever. You got to score some points.
yeah, I agree. I think St. Aug is they're not going to be able to get into this 13-6 kind of game. That's not how
No,
St. Augustine is built. Last week they were
no,
cold, nasty outside, and Choctaw is not a team that's going to score 50 on you. But Choctaw's their
right?
defensive front dominated St. Augustine.
Yeah,
St.
yeah,
Augustine was fortunate as can be that they scored early, because had there been another 5 minutes in that game, I think Choctaw would have won. They just uh, cannot say how much Choctaw just ate St. Augustine's lunch at the line of scrimmage, and they were fortunate in the first drive of the game. They had a big pick, Kyle Wilcox with a pick on the first drive of the game for Choctaw, that set up a St. Augustine rushing touchdown, and then later on, same quarter, Lachlan threw a big ball to Trenton Jones, and they scored right after that
yeah, yeah,
on a rushing touchdown. But no passing touchdowns for Lachlan. He was picked off in the fourth quarter of that game, really, like, again, inside the 30. And St. Augustine's defense held them and did not allow anything. So really credit to that defense for St. Augustine, because without that defense, the game of the season for them, with turning the ball over inside the 20, 25-yard line. They had another stop inside like the 15 on downs, it was 4th and 1, and they stopped them. So really a credit for that defense. Really, St. Augustine's defense, we overlook them a lot because
yeah,
their
yeah.
offense is so good, but
Right.
man, they play lights out, and they're the reason why St. Augustine is still going strong. But Plantation American Heritage, they are a tough, tough, tough task. And I don't think a local team has beaten them since Bowles and Corky Rogers beat them in a regular season game. So I do think that's going to be a
No,
tough
we
one for Brian Braddock.
Trinity beat them. We beat them a couple years ago.
Was that okay?
Um, because we did a home and road with them. We beat them. We beat them down there. That was
And then
like, I don't know,
they were
maybe.
up here. Was it? I want to say it was when Trinity had that crazy schedule, the Valdosta and those guys
Yeah, we
that
had because
year.
we had that was when the kid Brandon Ennis, the kid who's at Ohio State, he was like a receiver, but he was playing quarterback. Um, yeah, it was like maybe like 3 seasons ago.
Okay, yeah,
But
I
yeah,
want to say I want to say it was even further ago than that, wasn't it?
no, I'm telling
I'd
you,
have
it
to
was
look it up. I
yeah.
thought it was like in
It,
that 2020 chasm where they Trinity had that murderer's row schedule, and they
we
played
did
them.
play him. We did play him then too, but like I say, Brandon Ennis, I know he was the quarterback that year. He's only been at Ohio State for like 3 years. Because I used to that kid. He was amazing at receiver. I can say I can't even believe he can't get on the field at Ohio State right now either. But it is what it is. But yeah, that was I don't have to look it up too. But
Yeah, I have to.
it was a
It
couple
slipped my
years ago.
mind.
We did a home and road with them where we beat them down there. I know I can't remember if we beat them up here or not. If we won two in a row against them, but that like I say they're always good. They're always loaded.
Always good.
And
Always
yeah,
good.
so
And
it's just
even when I mean, Pat Sertan Senior built them into a really good program, and man, they have just kept it rolling, even with him being gone. So the last one we'll talk about Trinity Christian and Chaminade, and this one seems kind of like a foregone conclusion. I think Chaminade's won like 6 championships out of the last 7, or 5 of the last 6, and the one kind of blank in the middle from that being a perfect sweep was Trinity Christian beat them in 2020 at
yeah,
FSU. And
yeah,
it's one of the best games I've seen. Trinity was getting dominated in that game for the first half, and they came back in the second half. And Ja'Cory Jordan had a throw to Marcus Burke on like
yeah.
4th and 17. That was just
It
about
was
as good of a
miraculous.
throw
Yeah,
under pressure as I've ever seen in the high school level. I mean, I think back, Ivory Durham had a throw in a championship game, a run in a championship game against Coco a few years ago, and for Reigns to help them win the title. And to me, it was one of the biggest clutch plays in a championship game that I can remember. But man, that throw from Ja'Cory to Marcus Burke was as big as it got. And then Jonathan Goddard Jr. had that big sack to end it
yep,
against
yep.
Chaminade. But man, that was Chaminade's only loss to in that like 6 year span that would have had them 6 championships in a row, and Trinity was the one to do that. But we're in different times now, and this is a
Yeah,
Trinity, this is a young Trinity team, and Chaminade is kind of the blueprint to me for why change is needed in the state, because Chaminade's a
right.
super team, and
Yeah,
Trinity, I don't think they stand a chance in this game of even staying within like 4 touchdowns.
yeah. No, I've even watched some of the film on some, on them, and yeah, like they say like the last 7 years, almost the last, even the last decade, where we had to play them a couple times, even when we had Sean Wade and all those guys, where we beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, the Marcus Burke Florida State touchdown, and they were that was kind of when they started coming
That was
on. It
kind
was
of
like
their climb, yeah.
yeah, it was like Trinity was we were on like a 4 game or 4 state championship, in a row
Yep.
type deal. We played them in Orlando that year, and it was like they had that running back who went to Auburn, Sean Shivers. He was probably like five. Yeah,
Shivers, right? Shivers.
yeah. He
Was
was
that the
like
year that
so.
Chase Lassiter went crazy and started beating the guy up in the game?
I think so. Yeah, yeah. It was that was a while. That was when Rashid had a big game, and he ended up having like appendicitis or something like after the game or something. It was wild, but that
That
was when I
Rasheed did the
think.
flip into the end zone,
Yeah, yeah.
or was
And
that Bowie? I can't remember. Maybe that was
no,
Jalen.
yeah, that was Jalen did the flip against Clearwater Central Catholic, I think it was. But that was kind of where you saw Chaminade taking that turn, and then it was like, man, this team is going to be a problem. And then it's kind of like the St. Thomas's of the world, that private school area down in Miami,
Mm-hmm.
where with transfer portal open, borders, you can go wherever you want, school choice, all that stuff. People started going to Chaminade, like who would normally be going to your Northwesterns, your Centrals, your Miami Norland. They were getting everybody, and that you could see like the caliber of player they had, where it was like, yeah, this is like a stacked team. That the Jeremiah Smiths of the world,
Yeah.
on the team from last year, and they were almost invincible. And the year that they did beat them down in Tallahassee, I thought going into that game, I was like, they're not going to beat these guys. That defensive line they had was like
Yep.
all world. I was like, we're not gonna be able to run the ball, we're not gonna be able to protect. And lo and behold, they just kind of hung around and hit those big plays late. Yeah, this Chaminade team is not like that. They're really good. And even the guys that they've lost over the last 2 years, like those receivers, I think they lost like three receivers who are obviously Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, JoJo Traders at Miami. They had another kid, a couple of safeties and corners at Miami. So like they've lost some guys, but they kind of just reload them. And like I say, they're loaded again. I can't see how Trinity's biggest thing all year is they haven't really been able to throw the ball. They ran it all over UC last week. You're not just gonna run the ball all over Chaminade Madonna. It just ain't gonna happen. So in order for them to do anything, they're gonna have to be able to throw it. And I just don't think they will. And then on the flip side, Chaminade's offense is a juggernaut. So you got to be able to stop them. I don't see it at all. Really,
Yeah,
you got to
I'm
play the
with you.
game of your life, and I'm not seeing it. With the TC boys this week.
Yeah, and again, but you're a young team. Verlin and staff have done a great job to get what they got out of
Yeah,
this young team.
totally.
I see people online refer to Trinity as U15 team because
Right.
they're so young this year, and
Yeah.
to still be 10-3 in a
Yeah.
state semifinal is a really a tribute to that coaching staff being able to get as
Yeah.
much as they've gotten out of these young guys that have been asked to play huge roles. And great season for Trinity, regardless of how it ends this week. They played UC for the third year in a row in the state playoffs. UC won the first one to get to the Final Four. Trinity won last year in the first round, and then won last week pretty handily, like 27-6. Not even that close of a game. So good season by Trinity Christian, regardless of how it ends. But the season ended last week for Oakleaf at Buchholz. Became a pretty good game late in that one, 25-19. The Bobcats make their fourth state semifinal in a row. Oakleaf's best season since all the way back in 2014. They were 12-1 and went to the regional final. But for Coach Christopher Foy, second year, Jack McKissick had a great season passing the ball. He'll be back. They've got a really good nucleus of guys coming back on that squad for Oakleaf. So good year for the Knights. Am I missing anybody from last week's Sponge?
No, that was it because we were hoping that Oakleaf was going to be able to pull the upset.
Bowles lost to
Yeah. Oh
Gadsden
yeah. Oh
County,
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
20,
I was.
21-9, and
Were you
that game.
surprised by that?
A little surprised. I remember I was covered the Gadsden County Bowls game when it was here a few years ago, and Bowls really struggled in that game. They won 10-7 in overtime. But I'm really surprised that Bowles could not get more. I mean, Gadsden County's a big physical country kind of team. You got to
Yeah. Yeah.
play your
Yeah.
best to beat them. And that I was surprised Bowles offense only got 7 points in that game. A little surprised they didn't do a little bit more with all the guys being a little healthy and everything. So a little surprising they didn't get back to the state semifinals, but we just come to expect that from Bowles. That
Yeah.
fair or unfair, I think the expectation is for them to always be in the Final Four. And they had 5 years in a row under Matt Toblin.
Yeah.
They had been in the Final Four at least, and did not get that this year. But you can't win them all, and they did. They won all 10 since that week 1 loss to Rains. But
Yeah.
they bookended the season with losses to Rains in week 1 in Gadsden County last week. You see what Coco did to Newberry in 2A?
Yeah.
That's what Bowles or Bradford would have been kind of facing.
Yeah.
And Coco's just unstoppable.
Yeah. No, they're legit. Like I say, no surprises really. What's again, even going to the other classifications, like the Venices of the world are always there. St. Thomas is always there. Coco's always there. And even the teams that we're going to be facing, Plantation, Chaminade. And, the good part about it is our guys are usually the other teams there too, like the Trinities, the St. Augs, Bowls, Rain. So like, it's kind of like, it's always, it's a little cyclical sometimes where you'll get a new team in there and it'll cycle through, but the teams are the teams in the state of Florida. And, for you to knock those guys off is where that's where you earn your stripes, winning those games, pulling some upsets and beating, those brand name, nationally branded, Florida, champions of our state. But like I say, it's been a good year and it's been a rough year for some of our teams. So
Yeah.
hopefully, we can get one playing next week.
to quote Ric Flair, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And
Yeah,
Augustine
definitely.
has to do that with Plantation American Heritage. Trinity has to do that with Chaminade Madonna. And Reigns has to do that against Sarasota Booker, although I think Reigns wins that one comfortably. National Signing Day, early National Signing Day this
Yeah,
week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Saw one flip
we got some
already. Drake Stubbs going
more
to
potential
Florida
flips, huh?
from Miami. Maybe Jamie French. He's committed to Texas right now. Solomon Thomas committed to Florida State.
Yep.
We'll have updates of that over at newsforjacks.com and be at several of the signing events on Friday, on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. They actually have to wrap things up by Friday. It's just a 3-day early period. But you think any more flips this week, Sponge?
Well, that's going to be the interesting part is what is Jamie going to do? You've gotten, two of your buddies, two of your teammates, and Trammell and obviously Stubbs yesterday. Um, I I think we could see a flip, and then I think Solomon's down to Florida and LSU. I don't think he's going to sign with Florida State, so I think Solomon's flipping to one of those, either the Gators as well, or he's going to go to the Bayou. But like I say, it'd be huge for the Gators to get both of those guys, and then you're talking about getting some of potentially the best, Jacksonville players we've had in a while to go up to down to Gainesville.
Yeah, it'd be
So
huge. And I think for one, the benefit of playing with a DJ Lagway, who's a true freshman.
yep,
Your athletic director, Scott Strickland, already said, hey, Billy and Saff are coming back. We're not
yeah,
firing him. And then once he got that vote of confidence, he went on a tear, finished 7-5.
yeah,
They're going to a bowl game against a crazy schedule that they played. And then
yeah,
when you see your friends start going to these places, and
yeah,
anytime I go back to like when Tebow was at Florida, you saw all these local guys going there with him. You saw all these guys, the Percy Harvins of the world, signing because you want to play
mm,
with a darn good player. And with DJ Lagway doing what he did at Florida, Lagway is a Gator lifer. It almost
yeah,
feels like at this point.
right,
So he is going to be
right.
able to bring those guys in. I do think we will get one more quote unquote big flip, be it Solomon. I think Solomon is probably flipping away from Florida State. Florida State's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
dumpster fire at this point. And Texas or Florida for Jamie French, man,
yeah,
Texas money or Gators money.
yeah. I know. That's what I'm saying. I think you're gonna go with that Texas oil money, baby.
Yeah, Texas is hard to beat. So, but that will do it for another Varsity 4 edition, a state semifinal edition of the Varsity 4 podcast. Hopefully, we'll get Sponge healthy and back in the office and next week,
Yeah.
and maybe we'll be talking about 3 state championship teams. Probably
Hey.
not, but hopefully we'll get at least one down there. Haven't had a team win a state championship, a local team win a state title since all the way back. I think in 2020, Sponge, right? That was the
Yeah,
last one.
yeah, no, that's crazy. It is. We've had a little bit of a dry spell for sure.
Or is it 2021? Didn't we have a Trinity title against Clearwater after that?
Yeah, because I was just looking it up. It was 21 and 22. It was 20. It was 2020 when we played
2021.
and then 21 when we played Plantation. We
Yep.
played it back in. We hit them 3-0 at their house, and then we beat them like 27-14 at Trinity. That was Kewan Herndon went off on them boys that day.
Kewan Herndon.
Yeah,
Man alive.
I
So
know. It feels long ago. It feels so long ago, but yeah.
it's crazy. For some reason, I thought it was the COVID time that they did that. But the last state championship by an area team was Trinity
Yeah,
at
yeah. In Tallahassee, right?
was it 21? Did they go back to back? I believe they went back to back, right? The Marcus
Yes. Yeah,
Burke
yeah,
throw,
yeah.
and then
Yep, 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 yep,
um,
yep, yep.
the Trayon Webb year in 21.
Yep. That was the Champagnat.
Yep,
Yep.
Champagnat. That's right. That's right.
In Tallahassee. That was the game in at their whatever field that they always play those
Yep,
games in Tallahassee.
man. So it's been a while since
Yeah,
we've had a team
you're right. We like I said, we had a
win.
shot last year with St. Aug and they didn't pull it out, but
St. Aug Bradford
hopefully,
last year couldn't get it done,
yeah,
and maybe this year we get one done. But you got to play the semifinal games first. Trinity Christian at Chaminade Madonna, St. Augustine at Plantation American Heritage, and then Sarasota Booker coming up to the Graveyard on Friday night to try and see if they can slow down the machine of the Reigns Vikings. Sponge and I'll come to you next week. Hopefully, we'll be talking about state championship
yeah.
projections, but I'm going to say we get a 1-2 week this week. Sponge, you in agreement?
I'm with you on that one.
So
Tough, but yeah.
1-2 for Sponge and I. So for a state semifinal edition of the Varsity 4 podcast, Justin Barney and Sponge Franklin. We'll talk to you next week, maybe about state championship previews.